What's going on, y'all? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. Time for another episode of the Ancestry Anthology. Today, we're breaking out Lost Omens, the Mwangi Expanse, once again to talk about the Shisk. Remember, if you're liking what you're seeing, to like, subscribe, and ding the bell. Stay caught up on all your stuff. For now, let's dive in. Okie dokie. So, while the Shisk have features and skin tones which are similar to humans, generally ranging from deep tan to deep black, humans they are not. They have hollow bones, a lack of body hair, and instead their backs are covered in vestigial plumage that grows present day only as bony quills. They can't fly currently, but the hollow bones and the fact that the pins are longer around their arms seems to indicate that a long time ago in their history, they might have had wings. Their eyes contract into slits in the sunlight, and are typically the warm colors of the spectrum. They have two prominent narrow fangs as the front teeth on their upper jaw, but primarily subsist on low-calorie diets of veggies and insects. The Shisk aren't known as a people to maintain written records, rather passing down their history verbally and musically. They, as a culture, do collect and protect esoteric knowledge, which is one of the few things that is known to lead a Shisk from leaving their dark tunnels and caverns in which they call home to explore the world. Oftentimes, the only proof that these people exist come from people finding their low-impact adobe buildings carved out of the mountains in which they live. Mechanically speaking, a Shisk has 8 hit points. They're medium creatures with a speed of 25 feet. They have boosts to intelligence with 1 freebie, and begin play speaking Mwangi, Shisk, and additional languages for a positive int. They, of course, have dark vision, as you might guess. For their heritages, the Lore Keeper Shisk is trained in 1 lore skill and 1 other int or whiz-based skill of their choice. They become an expert in both skills at 5th. Spellkeeper Shisks choose either Occult or Primal and gain 1 cantrip from that Magical Tradition spell list, which they can cast as an innate spell at will as a spell of the chosen tradition. Stone Step Shisk ignore non-magical difficult terrain caused by rubble and uneven ground. Strong Gut Shisk can go for a week without food before they begin to get hungry, and also the onset time and length of stages for diseases is increased by 50%, making it that much easier for your Shisk character to cry to the cleric when they get the filth fever. But the one to call home about, I think, the Quill Coat Shisk gains the Barbed Quills reaction. If you are hit with an unarmed strike or with a non-reach melee weapon, you deal 1d8 piercing damage to the triggering creature as you break quills off in them. Terrifying. This involves a basic reflex save using either your class DC or spell DC, whichever is higher. On a crit failure, the creature also takes a d4 of persistent bleed damage at 3rd level, and every 2 levels thereafter, this damage goes up by 1d8 and the persistent goes up by 1. You can only do this once per day, but much like the Gripply, what the heck's a Gripply, follow this card. I really like this because that can be a very decisive end of combat reaction. The boss is on their last legs, hold this reaction out, they swing at you, and then suddenly they realize there's something stuck in their jugular and they're dead. For the Ancestry Feats, Eidetic Ear, the ability to remember any sounds you heard, gets you Assurance in Performance. With a successful DC 8 flat check, you can accurately recall a sound or snippet of conversation you heard within the last week. You memorize, of course, by rote rather than content, so you can't, cram facts about it. But it is a good, hey GM, last week, didn't we hear the plot? What did they say again? I have this thing. Stop holding information out on us. Shisk Lore gets you trained in 3 lore skills and Shisk Lore, 4 for the price of 1 feat. That's dope. Lore the plot 3 times. I'll take it. Spelunker, if you roll a success on survival checks to sense direction or athletics checks to climb, you get a critical success instead. You are not flat-footed when you attempt to climb. Spine Stabber nets you a Quills unarmed attack that deals a d6 of piercing damage. In the knife weapon group with the finesse and unarmed traits, oh man, if this was agile, this would be a really cool looking mental image of just stabbing people with porcupine quills to death. As it stands, still pretty good. Thief Rogues, eat your heart out. Bristle, now they're on to level 5, for 1 action gets you a +1 circumstance to AC as you stick your spikes out at folks. If you have Barbed Quills or a Quills unarmed attack, both gain a +1 circumstance to damage until the start of your next turn. Inured to the Heat gets you resistance 4 to fire, and lets you treat environmental heat effects as if they were 1 step less extreme. Renewing Quills lets you use Barbed Quills once every 10 minutes, which means as the champion is getting their focus points back, you're just growing quills back. which makes this really interesting for a build. Talk about that in a second. Dig Up Secrets lets you cast Hypercognition as an innate occult spell once per day, lets you roll 5 times on a knowledge check once per day, and a level earlier than the investigator gets it. Dope. Piercing Quills lets your Quills unarmed attack deal that 1d4 persistent bleed on a critical hit, much like when it does when you react at people. Quill Spray for 2 actions lets you fire off your quills in a 30-foot cone, dealing 5d8 piercing damage on a basic save against either your class DC or spell DC. I'm gonna assume that's reflex. It doesn't say, but like it wouldn't be the other two. On a critical failure, your targets take 5 persistent bleed damage, and at 11th and every even level thereafter, the piercing damage ticks back up. Delver gets you a literal burrow speed through loose soil or dirt, so you can position that 30-foot cone of needle spray that much better. None Shall Know gets you non-detection as an innate occult spell once per day, which can only be cast on yourself and is automatically heightened for when that wizard is really tired of finding quills and his minions dead on the battlefield and tries to find you. Secret Eyes lets you cast Prying Eye once per day as an innate occult spell. And lastly, Fountain of Secrets. As a free action once per round, you attempt to check to recall knowledge. If you succeed, you get additional information or context. If you critically succeed, if the GM really wants to just give you the monster's stat block, they may do so. So yeah, this Ancestry feels a lot like a damage, just flat powerhouse. It's unfortunate those quills can't have agile. Short swords will probably always be better, but I guess that makes a certain amount of sense given that one of these is a natural defense and the other has been made over the histories to kill people. But that's like the only shortcoming I see on the Shisk. As far as their ability score adjustments go, not everyone needs a buff to intelligence, but no one's mad when they get it, and that extra freebie makes you real versatile without a neg. And then you have a reaction in-house that essentially ticks down to once per encounter, do a boatload of d8s to somebody, and then sometimes turn it into a cone. DPS.Ancestry is what we're looking at here. I envision magi, rogues, barbarians, truly any class that wants to be up front and center, especially when you get those like extra reaction, which you can only use to shield block on your classes that are wielding shields. Something along the lines of run up, double slice, fish for the last attack, then they hit you, then here's a bunch of other d8s as well. Stride into a flank, sneak attack, and then when they turn to, oh god, it's the rogue, stop the rogue. Oops, something stuck in my throat and now I'm dead. From a mechanical aspect, this Ancestry is just straight up gas. Their lore is really cool too. They exist in the space of people that have evolved far outside contact with other humanoids, but are very happy to talk to other humanoids because they know there's stuff they're missing. To their culture, money doesn't matter so much as art, information, because indeed, knowledge more valuable, it turns out, than a shiny piece of metal. 10 out of 10 rolling up one of these at some point. But what do y'all think? Have you rolled up a Shisk? Have you GM'd for one? How did it go? Let me know down in the comments. As always, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.